So it's crazy. I came across that clip. Some of y'all probably have seen it. Of Yolanda Adams, and she was speaking on the Lord. She was speaking on God, and she was saying how I don't think that God is the small is as small as we have been making him, her, or it to be, as if she doesn't know who God is. And it's crazy because, y'all, I just was reading 2 Peter chapter 2 yesterday, before I even came across that. And it says in verse 15, they have left the straight way and wandered off to follow the way of Balaam, son of Bezor, who loved the wages of wickedness. Listen, I don't know if y'all remember Balaam. Balaam, and this is so crazy, y'all, because I was just rereading Numbers chapter 23. Balaam knew about God. He knew about the Lord. He even knew about the promises of the Lord because he quoted them and, you know what I'm saying, would repeat them. So he knew that he knew that the king was the King of Kings and he was the Lord of Lords. He knew that. However, his consciousness was seared because he was still practicing divination, which is why Balak sought him out. And you know his consciousness was seared because he was accepting money. He still went along with this man, with this king, to curse God's people that he knew he couldn't curse, but he did it anyway because he was getting paid. So that's why it says he who loved the wages of wickedness. So he was one of them believers that was corrupt concerning the faith. And so when I saw that with Miss Yolanda, I was part of me was shocked simply because of the fact that, you know, she has been making gospel music, you know, all this time, and she's been known for her faith. But then when she opens her mouth at this point in time of her life, that faith does not sound like it's there anymore. And that's where it comes into play here with they have forsaken the straight way. This is what happens when you get around folks who, first of all, this is what happens when you don't have a steady foundation in Christ. And that's what Paul was warning about in Colossians chapter 2. He was making sure that they understood, you know, make sure that you have a steady foundation in the Lord. Make sure that you continue your lives in him. He says, so then, just as you receive Christ as Lord, continue to live your lives in him, rooted and built up in him, strengthened in the faith as you were taught, and overflowing with thankfulness. He says, see to it that no one takes you captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy, which depends on human tradition and the elemental spiritual forces of this world rather than on Christ. People get led astray when they are not rooted and built up in Christ. When they don't go on to produce fruit, and they just stay at that milk phase of Jesus came and died for my sins, and they don't go on to increase in knowledge of him, it's very unfortunate. It's very, very unfortunate. And there are a lot of people like this, you know what I'm saying, where you're like, I thought you was a Christian all this time. But people, if they don't have a steady foundation, if they just grew up in church, if they just know about the religious aspect of Christianity, which is going to church, serving on the worship team and singing the songs, speaking in the tongues and shouting, if that's all they know, and they don't have like an intimate relationship with him to where it's undeniable, you know that you have met God and you know who he is, then it's going to be very easy for you to be moved off of your foundation in him. And this is coming from somebody who, I used to practice witchcraft. I did not believe in Jesus. I argued with Christians. That is the white man's religion, was my words. So I'm not coming from a place of, oh, I grew up in church all my life. No, I didn't. I knew about Christ, but I didn't know who he was, who he is. I did not know that. And so it's so disheartening for me to see people who once knew the way go off into some other stuff and lead other people down a rabbit hole with them.